Welcome back to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. My next guest is a Democratic member of the Wisconsin State Assembly representing District 11. He was elected to the chamber in 2016 and previously represented Assembly District 11 from 2005 to 2013. He's a former stockbroker, a graduate of Cardinal Stritch University, and a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. It is a pleasure to welcome Representative Jason Fields.
What's happening, Soror?
How are you? And for people who are going like, what did he call her? I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, so we are brothers and sisters in that way. So
how are you?
Thank you for being here. I'm doing well.
Thank you.
And I think that we should also mention, I think you went to Milwaukee Lutheran High School. Yeah.
A red night, yes.
Yes, definitely have to mention that. So we always like to kind of look at the backgrounds of our elected officials when we get them here on the show, because so many times we just get the headlines or a soundbite. But tell me how, in fact, you first decided to go into the world of politics. I mentioned that you kind of have a background in finance.
Yeah, it started with, I was a young stockbroker at the time downtown, and I don't know if your audience will remember, but Tyrone Dumas ran for county.
He's been on the show.
Who's my godfather, actually ran against Scott Walker for county exec at the time, and I was his campaign manager.
Okay.
And at the time, we call it you get bit by the bug. And so after that, next thing I know, I'm in politics consistently, volunteering for a lot of campaigns. And a couple of years later, fast forward, I'm 30 years old. Johnny Morris Tatum decides she's going to run for Senate. She vacates her spot. And I go to the community members and I said, I think I want to do this. And I ran and won, and here I am.
And here you are. So you were out of the political scene for about 3 years, and now you're back. So talk about why it was important for you to return.
I think I started several businesses. I wrote 2 books. And when I looked at what was going on in the community, for me it was just what kind of leadership do we need that is cutting edge, that's innovative, that tends to do the sort of things that I like to focus on: economic development, financial literacy. How do we make sure that there are examples of leadership to a growing generation of young individuals that need to question, who am I? Where did I come from? What's my purpose? And so getting back into politics was an avenue for me to show people that.
Okay, and so with some of the issues that people face, specifically in Milwaukee and surrounding areas, you're representing Glendale.
Glendale, small percentage of Glendale and majority of Milwaukee.
Okay, so when it comes to bettering the lives of your constituents, what are some of the issues that are important to you?
I think the first thing you have to do is you look at what does that area need, and how do you begin to effectuate that? And you got to really listen to people. Oftentimes you hear, well, we need jobs. That's sort of a lazy response, because if you look, we have jobs here. What we need to focus on is the training for the jobs, the intellectual,
finding skilled workers,
the soft skills, skilled workers. And so first we have to address that monkey in the room. We don't just need jobs. We need people who can do the jobs there. And once you do that, you begin to look at, well, where are these jobs? Financial services is one of my favorite of mine. How can I train more people in the financial arena? Welding, a machinist. You have a large baby boomer population that's going to be retiring. So you have organizations like Caterpillar, P&H Holdings, a lot of manufacturing companies that need the skilled workers. So here in the city of Milwaukee, we have a plethora of bodies. We just have to get them trained to do the jobs that are there. And so those are the initiatives that I focus on.
Yeah, we've had this conversation. Lieutenant Governor Rebecca Clayfish was here, and she talked about these thousands of jobs across the board in the state of Wisconsin, but then being a lack of skilled workers to fill those positions. So you bring up a great point, and it's very fitting that you serve on the committees for jobs and the economy, urban revitalization, and financial institutions. So a lot of passion there, obviously.
Always business and economic development.
So I read that one of your proudest moments, you said, in your life was the passing of Assembly Bill 280. So talk about that bill and why it's important for you.
So the Assembly Bill 280 does mandates that all of our school systems teach some form of financial literacy.
Okay.
And, a lot of schools do it. But growing up, there was a need for me to question in my community, why don't we have insurance? Why don't we know about retirement accounts, investing in stock. There's a gap there when you look at the wealth income gap, when you look at all the statistics that will dictate how African Americans are faring. Why aren't we learning some of these things? And so for me, it was a question of, what do we need to do to make sure our children are learning this? Because if you learn how to make better financial decisions, you literally become a better individual, or you can make better decisions. Because in reality, it costs money to be poor. It costs money to live in poverty. And so if I help change your mindset by exposing you to the concept that you can make good financial decisions, like not buying $250 pair of Nike shoes, but rather investing in Nike stock, owning the company. If I can help change your mindset, I can propel you to a different level. And so by this bill passing, was just, for me, it was a tool for us to expose people who otherwise wouldn't know that you have the potential to be a millionaire at some point in time in your life.
Yeah, now that when you said that about the sneakers, that automatically reminded me of Dr. Bill Cosby some years back. He kind of was putting that message out there, and people were not receiving it well. Was it because of the way it was delivered? Because there's this interesting thing when you talk about the buying power of African Americans. This year, African Americans will have $1.3 trillion in buying power. So I guess the big question is, are we putting our money in the right place? So kind of talk about that.
And the question becomes, I think, for us as a community, what are we getting for that? Right? Okay. What do we have to show for it? When you look in the city of Milwaukee, where 25% of the people live in poverty, just last year alone, children between the ages of 18 to 24 filed for bankruptcy. What are we getting? As an African American community, what are we getting? Are we putting money in the wrong places? How many African American manufacturing companies do we have here in the city of Milwaukee? Why don't we have a movie theater in the city of Milwaukee? Why don't we have more African American restaurants downtown? And part of that is because you have to be exposed to the concept of financial literacy and business literacy. And when you do that, then you begin to help your community. You can understand that if I save money, I can start my own business out of high school, out of college. And if I do that in my own hometown, I can hire some of those people in the community. Okay. That has to be our mindset.
It's very interesting. Economists have what they call conspicuous consumption. And I guess in other words, that's the desire to keep up with the Joneses.
Yes.
So just to kind of break it down. When we talk about people investing their money, you said instead of buying the $250 pair of Nikes, maybe invest in Nike. But for a hardworking person living paycheck to paycheck, their question would be, how do you do that?
And here's the question when I teach financial literacy and business literacy classes. And what I always stress to people is, before we can start talking about money, I have to deal with the emotional trauma of where you're at about money. So I have to effectuate your mind, help you change your mind. Can you really not afford it?
Okay.
Or is it hard?
Do you think you can't afford it?
Because our brains are wired to either run towards something that makes us feel good or to flee something negative. And so when we start thinking about, well, can I really do it? Can you really do it? Odds are you can. But we've been tricked into believing that you have to have a lot of wealth. We have apps now where you can start investing spare change. Every time you buy a coffee, 50 cents is invested into some spread out stocks. So there's literally no reason or excuses to why you can't do it. The only question that matters is, are you tired of living the life that you're living? And where do you really want to be? And are you committed to getting there?
Well, part of that is obviously knowledge, because you know about these things, but it's not something that's talked about every day. So it's important to have someone like yourself be able to come on and educate us all about that. And with that said, you actually have a Financial Promise Foundation. And that focuses on business literacy, adults and young adults, as well as high schoolers. So fill us in on that.
So two organizations, the Financial Promise Foundation, which is the foundation where I teach business literacy, financial and personal financial literacy for adults and children between the ages of 5 and up. And the reason for that was because, as you said, a lot of it does have to do with what are we exposed to, who's really talking about it. And for me, it was vital, it was imperative. And so when you know better, you can do better.
True.
And so every blue moon, I offer classes from budgeting to how does your emotion affect your financial decisions. We do business literacy classes for entrepreneurs who want to understand, well, what do those financial numbers really mean? You're a business owner, you have several entities, and when you're looking at your money and you're making deals, are you really bringing in $1 million because you may have sales of $1 million? What's your cash flow? If you're bringing in $1 million, but you only have $2,000 worth of cash, you're not $1 million business.
Okay.
I mean, you probably are.
Pretty,
you probably
that's pretty. That's as literal as it gets. So it's all interesting. And so, if somebody wants to find out more about these classes and workshops that you conduct, what is that website?
You can go to www.thefinancialpromise.com.
Okay. Something else I wanted to mention before we wrap up. According to a study that was done by the Nielsen Company, they said that African Americans watch more TV, make more shopping trips, purchase more ethnic beauty and growing products 9 times more. However, there are companies that are spending just like 3% of their advertising budgets marketing to African American consumers, and only 2 cents of every dollar an African American spends in this country actually goes to Black-owned businesses. Do you find that interesting as well?
It's interesting. It's a little disappointing.
Yeah.
But we have to understand we have some control of that.
Okay.
You know, we have to understand that if we are to be the leaders and the authors of our own destiny, then we have to take responsibility in our community. You know, I mean, it's why do we go outside our community to do business with other individuals? Not saying that that's wrong, but why don't we treat the same individuals in our community with the same level of respect that we treat people outside of our community?
Yeah.
And we have to look at shifting our mindset from becoming a consumer to becoming an owner. It's better to own the business than consistently go and purchase the products. Why not become a manufacturer or a distributor of the product? But that's a mindset that we have to get out of.
Okay, well, it's good to know that you are around and you actually have things set up where people can learn more about that. So I encourage them to go to your website. Thank you for coming by today.
Thanks for having me.
He's got a lot going on.
I'm
politics,
trying to be like
finance.
you. I'm trying to be like you.
I appreciate you. Representative Jason Fields is a Democratic member of the Wisconsin State Assembly representing District 11. For more information on the Assembly, visit legis.wisconsin.gov. And that's going to do it for today's show. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. As always, thank you for watching, and I hope you join us again next week as we take another look at our issues, Milwaukee. Have a great day.